Good afternoon, guys, and welcome to the podcast. I'm really happy to have on our show Chris Smith. He is a USA Today best-selling author for marketing and sales books, and he Johns Hopkins and NYU uses his book, The Conversion Code, as required reading. I'm really happy to have him on to talk to the audience, a doctor, lawyer, dentist, entrepreneurs, accountants, high income, high net worth, and really pick his brain. So, Chris, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you are an expert on the highest selling book on lead conversion. What got you into this, and how is it that you're the leader in lead conversion?
Yeah, I think I worked from the bottom up. Like if you think about a funnel, on the bottom is the sale. And so I started my career in phone sales, telemarketing, and I was in a boiler room dialing for dollars before there were internet leads. And the guy I worked for was a billionaire. His name was Lou Pearlman, and he's in Orlando here where I'm from. And he is the guy that discovered the Backstreet Boys and NSYNC, as well as Britney Spears. So he had a company called Fashion Rock where people from all over the country would come to Orlando to try to get discovered. This is before American Idol, before America's Got Talent. There really was no way unless you moved to LA or moved to Nashville or something like that. And the sales coaches at this company were amazing. They were able to help teach me the science of sales and how to have a conversation that leads to a conversion. And I worked for another billionaire after that, very similar, guy named Dan Gilbert that owns the Cleveland Cavs. He has a company called Rocket Mortgage, which most people have heard of. It was called Quicken Loans when I was there. And so I've just always been really observant and interested and loved all the jobs I've had. And I just sort of took mental notes. And then social media came about. And that's when I really started getting into the marketing side, because I would basically share the stuff that I learned and knew with my email list, with my Facebook page, with my Twitter followers. And I was really early. And I was definitely in some ways too early, but grew a huge following right away of real estate agents that loved all the stuff that I was teaching. And from there started a company and made the Inc list and wrote all these books. And yeah, I think I've put more time into dialing for dollars at the bottom of the funnel and then creating followers and creating content marketing at the top of the funnel than anyone else. And my book is published through Wiley. It's a huge book publisher. It's sold hundreds of thousands of copies, been translated in 7 languages around the world. It's on Audible, bookstores. And so it's just been a really fun journey. I just really am I basically documented what's worked for me and for my clients at the companies that I've worked for. Yeah. And it's not a real estate book. It's not specific to realtors. Like your audience, like accountants and insurance sales and attorneys, they love it because it's a practical guide. It's step by step. There's actually a little thing in the book called Do It Now, which is as you're reading, you can execute some things that'll really work for you. So yeah, it's been a fun journey. Been probably in sales and marketing for 20 years now. And American Marketing Association gave me an award, and Inkless gave me an award. And it's just been a lot of fun. And I feel like you should just give back and try to teach other people, that maybe are not as blessed as you've been.
Yeah, I really love that. That's fascinating. I've always been interested in just funnels and how at each step of the way so I guess what would be I talked to the last guy, he was an investor, and we were talking about holy grail of investing. What's the holy grail of generating high quality leads that easy to convert, or how do you actually get someone on the phone and get them to buy like a $10,000, $20,000 product from you?
Yeah, the holy grail is if you picture a Venn diagram with marketing, sales, and tech, and that kind of place where they meet in the middle is lead conversion. So it's really being obsessed and focused on all 3 buckets. And what I found is that some people like yourself are 100% conversion rate when they're in front of somebody, but they don't know how to do the marketing to get the person in the door. Or some people are great at marketing and terrible at sales. Like a lot of agency owners, people that own marketing agencies are terrible at sales, but they're great at marketing. And then, of course, there's the tech challenge, whether it's CRM or landing pages, email tools, website tools, AI now. That can be overwhelming for a lot of people, especially if you're a solopreneur and you have to wear all those hats. It's really daunting. But the mecca is when all three of those are dialed in and working in unison. And the conversation comes towards the end of that process. But I would say that some of the best practices would be when you do get a lead, the response time is the most important thing. The ability to turn a lead into a client when you respond in 1 minute or 2 minutes or 4 minutes is 100x, even if you just respond 30 minutes later, because these are internet leads. These are people that come in through social media. They don't necessarily have an affinity with your business. And when they say the best dentist in East Orlando and they call to set an appointment, if that call doesn't get answered and that appointment doesn't get booked, they just go down to the next one that has good reviews too. And they call them. There's no loyalty. So speed to lead is critical. And then conversations are really what you're going for in sales. You're going for a meaningful conversation that's longer than 5 minutes to get someone to want to have you become their accountant or their attorney. It's not going to be a 3-minute call. You're not selling e-commerce, click and buy. When you're a service professional, you have to build a relationship with someone. And it's, I think, a lot easier than people think, but it just comes down to the most important word, which is curiosity. And if you're curious, then you ask a lot of questions. And if you ask a lot of questions, you have a great conversation. And when you have a conversation, then you become trusted. And one of my co-authors, he says that sales is earning the right to make a recommendation. And so there are what I call power questions that you can ask. And then there's a technique that everybody should use called digging deep, which is if somebody says, if I ask someone, how long have you been an accountant? And they're like, oh, it's 15 years. A lot of people, they think of it like an application and they just go to the next question, It's, 15 years. But like a really good salesperson will be like, oh, 15 years. What'd you do before that? And then it's, I was actually a police officer before that. Oh, cool. What, were you a detective or like a traffic cop? It's, oh, yeah, I was a traffic cop. Oh man, I bet you saw some wrecks. Like that's how you build rapport with someone, is you just actually care. And I think that genuine curiosity is a big part of it.
Yeah, interesting. A lot of people, I think now these days, it's like Substack and LinkedIn and email newsletters.
Sure.
How do you incorporate this vehicle in getting high quality leads that are easy to convert?
Yeah, the saying that's become really famous is the fortune is in the follow-up. And what I have an email newsletter, it goes out every Tuesday at 2 p.m. It's called the Chris List. Go to thechrislist.com, and it's 100% value, right? I came up with the acronym for Chris, CHRIS, and each one of those letters is a section: how to, stats, research, inspiration. And you really want to have high quality follow-up. A lot of companies, what I've found is they just have autoresponders and like drip campaigns. And those are all set it and forget it. You probably wrote those, or they might have even come included with HubSpot, like when you signed up or something like that. But to be an expert, you have to really know your niche. And so especially with AI being able to help you summarize stuff and find really great content, the combination of ads and email and phone calls and text messages, I think of it like the military. Like you want to attack by land, sea, and air. And so If all you're doing is phone calls to follow up and you don't have a great email newsletter that's nurturing the lead and showing them that you're an expert, it's not going to be quite as easy. Or if all you ever do is send emails, but you never actually pick up the phone and call people, you're also not going to get as many sales as you could. So I think whether it's YouTube or TikTok or Instagram or Substack, or I use ConvertKit, it's called Kit, content marketing that builds you as the authority makes leads convert themselves. Because what happens is when you need to sell something, they can't wait to buy it from you. They're excited to buy it from you. They're like, man, this guy's really smart. If he's releasing a new book or if he's got a new software, like they're going to want to check it out because they trust you. So I think a lot of people, it's a little tricky because you're screaming into the abyss. Things like open rate or click rate, and is that working, right? Does that work? People always wondering like what the attribution is. Are my ads working? Are my emails working? And the way I try to explain it would be like, I have about 17,000 people on my email list and I get around like 35% open rate, right?
Yeah.
So that's 6,000 people. And what I try to tell people is imagine if you were on stage and there were 6,000 people in the crowd, you'd be freaking out. You would never question like if that were important. So treating your content, your TikToks, your email newsletter, think of it like that, because even if you have a small following, I think it's still a good visual to do. Let's say your Instagram reel got 600 views. A lot of people think that's awful, or 200 views, right? But again, if you were at a business conference and there were 200 people in the room listening to you speak, you would be nervous. You'd the night before be going over your talking points and making some tweaks to your slides. You would take it real serious. So I think it's a little bit of a skill to be like a one-way communicator, but to treat it like a two-way relationship. But you have to really truly like love like gratitude, but without getting it the way that maybe you're used to. Like I think of every view, every like, every comment, every open as a signal that people appreciate the work I'm putting in, whereas they might not directly tell you and you may not know for sure. But when you do enough sales calls, back to the reason these things are so important together, when I get on a sales call and it's, oh my God, I can't believe I'm talking to you. Like I read your book, the conversion code, it's on my bookshelf. Like I used to listen to your podcast, The Water Cooler. Like you guys were amazing. Like I love the Chris list. You know, I get your email. You're the only email newsletter I open every time. That's a pretty strong place to start. That's a higher quality lead that's easier to convert.
Really interesting. And I love how you have this analogy of just like a very diversified approach and using all channels and building trust, authority. So the next question I have for you is in terms of what are you, because you talked about open rate and you talked about your sales pitch, but what are the stats behind the science of sales and what goes into making a good, like the perfect sales pitch?
Yeah. I mentioned earlier, making sure you're contacting people super quickly and then making sure you're extending the conversation as long as it can go. So one of the stats that's really fascinating is top salespeople, the best salespeople in the world, when they're closing and asking for the business is around 43 minutes into a call. The average salespeople are closing at about 13 to 14 minutes. The other thing that happens is when you look at the talk time of the lead versus the salesperson, the lead should be talking more than you. 57% of the time on a call with a lead that converts is the lead speaking, not you. 43% is the rep. If you look at like bottom salespeople, the ones that are terrible, it's 70% them and only 30% the lead. So I think people can take these little nuggets and kind of self-diagnose, and it's okay. So I need to have them talking more than me. I need to have conversations that go 30 or 40 minutes. I better have a lot of great questions prepared. And I better have a lot of great questions to follow up the answers to the questions that I've planned, because that's really the only way. I did mortgages for a long time where people are pretty rate sensitive, right? It's like, I just wanted to know what the rates are. That's what every single person says. I'm sure if you're a dentist, people probably call like, how much is it to get a crown? Like, how much do you guys charge for crowns or whatever? And those are frequently asked questions that you need to really get good at answering. And I'll give you one of the science techniques. So there's a study where the goal was, how do we get someone to take action? If we want to get someone to do something, what do we need to factor in? And what they learned was that 55% of human communication is body language and physiology. And so if you think about doing phone sales, you don't have that. We have it on this because we're on StreamYard or we're on Zoom or whatever. And if your sales calls are on Zoom, great. It's super helpful. Turn the camera on, trust me. But 38% of the emotion is through tone, your tone of voice. And only 7% is the words that you say. So for a lot of people listening, I wouldn't even get so obsessed with practicing a script, because a script, if you're trying to memorize it and trying to read it, it's going to kill your tone. So that's why I just get so bullish on come up with 10 amazing questions and then ask a follow-up to every answer that they give you, because that's going to be much more genuine. And it can be on a sheet of paper. I have a script, like it's free on my website, theconversioncode.com. It's called the $1 billion sales script. It's the script that we used at all these companies, but it's like almost empty because it's all fill in the blank. It's not like a big chunk of paragraph that someone would memorize. So that comes into mind. But one of the techniques that's really powerful and super helpful is called ARPing, okay, which is ARP. Almost sounds like a seal. ARP, ARP. And ARP stands for acknowledge, respond, pivot. So you're going to get those brick wall statements on a lot of the calls that you make, which would be the equivalent of, what's the interest rate? And if they said, what's the interest rate? And I said, oh, it's 6.5%. And then they already saw that it was 6.4% somewhere else. Like, it's going to just be a quick call. So when you get those difficult kind of questions up front, because remember, I'm trying to have a long conversation and they're trying to cut to the chase, so that you acknowledge what they said. This is critical because you don't have the physiology. They don't see that you're nodding along. So you would literally just repeat back what they said. Oh, you want to know what the interest rates are? Great question. And then you respond, but you don't respond with the answer. You would say, our interest rates are based on the bond market, just like every other bank's interest rates. They're all about the same. That's the response. And then you would pivot and say, what's your current interest rate? So it's acknowledge what they say, respond to what they say, pivot. So if someone said, I need a crown, how much do you charge for crowns? Oh, how much do we charge for crowns? Great question. Be happy to answer that for you. We charge in the ballpark of what everybody else charges. Which tooth is it that you need a crown for? See how you're like pivoting away. So that's a technique that helps really early in a call, but it also helps really late in a call, because there's another technique called ARC, ARC, which is the same thing. You acknowledge the objection. Says, I think I'm going to have to call somebody else. You guys are a little too expensive. So you acknowledge, oh, you think we're too expensive? And then you respond, that's probably because I didn't do a good enough job of explaining our value. Here's our value again. And then you close again. Did you want to do credit or debit to pay for the crown? Right. So that's acknowledge what they said, respond to what they say, close again. because typically you're going to get an objection when you close, no matter what you do. The last little technique I would give people would be what's called the slot close or the trial close. Okay. You have this sort of big sale you're going for, which is, do you want to buy? Yes or no, credit or debit? And instead of making that what you crescendo to a different question. So in the mortgage example, instead of saying, are you ready to do this? Or does this sound like the right loan for you? I would say, hey, by the way, we do have to send an appraiser out to your house to verify the value that you told me it's worth. Would it be better for the appraiser to come during the week or on the weekend? And then they might say, oh, the weekend's better. Okay, great. And as far as the deposit for the appraisal, did you want to do credit or debit? So you're asking like a question that doesn't ask them for the sale, but by them answering it, it gets them thinking like, oh, this is heading in that direction. When I was selling software, it was the same thing. Like, hey, our team's going to do a one-on-one call to make sure you understand everything we went through today. They have Tuesdays and Thursdays that they do those calls. Does either of those, Tuesday or Thursday, work better? Oh, typically for us, Thursday. Okay, cool. And did you want to do a business or a personal credit card for the first payment? And those little things just make it a little easier for both parties.
Really fascinating. And I encourage the audience and listeners to check out Chris's books and his website. And if people wanted to get better at closing and learn from you, how can they reach you, contact you, connect with you, and work with you?
Sure. Yeah, the conversion code, if you go to Amazon and search the conversion code or go to theconversioncode.com. I mentioned earlier my newsletter, thechrislist.com, but the place I'm the most active online is Instagram and Twitter, X. And my handle is a little weird because my name is so common, Chris Smith, but it's Chris_SMTH, no I in Smith. Chris_SMTH, same on Instagram and Twitter. And yeah, if you listen to the podcast today, send me a DM, say hello. Heard you on Dr. Lou, and it'd be great to connect with some of your listeners.
Yeah, awesome. Really great tips and a really great conversation, and keep up the great work.
Thanks, man.